Good evening, everyone. I hope that you can all hear me, and welcome everyone to this evening's talk, and a particular welcome to Jerry Gore, OMT, mountaineer and charity founder and fundraiser. Before I introduce Jerry, just want to also introduce two lower sixth formers, Afan Kundi and Sahil Shah, who are co-hosts this evening. And if you've got any questions that come up throughout the talk, you're very welcome to put them to Jerry. If you want to pop them in the chat to Afan and Sahil, that would be great. And then hopefully there'll be time for questions afterwards. But I have to tell you, you're in for a really exciting evening this evening. You know, it's well worth a listen. So Jerry was in Andrew's house, and he was here at Merchant Taylor School between 1974 and 1979. And he showed more than a little promise when it comes to all things adventure. He is mentioned in the Taylorian in the final couple of years that he was at school for so many kind of outward bound activities, including a British schools reconnaissance mission to Norway, I believe. He was the Expeditionary Society Secretary. He was in the Canoe Club, the Royal Navy section. He won the Edward Huskisson Memorial Fund Prize in his final year to take the to go and do more exploration. And then in 1979, at the parachute course, it was notable that he landed 20 feet from the cross, which I think probably was your first jump, was it, Jerry? Which is quite... It was, yeah, it was. So I know we're in for a brilliant evening this evening, and just thank you so much, Jerry, and over to you.
Great, thanks very much, Emma. And hi and welcome, everybody. I'm really happy to be here and to talk to MTs and OMTs alike. Oh my goodness, how long ago was I at MTs? So we're talking back in the 70s, and life was very different then, although probably still in the Cold War like we are now. Anyway, I'm going to talk about my life on the edge. Sorry about the spelling mistake. That's my dyslexia. Should have been diagnosed in MTs actually. But my big thing really is in this talk is about never giving up. And I think it's really important. It seems really simple and trite to say, but in many ways, life is all about that, never giving up. Okay, so I've got to say at MTs, I could have done better. Despite what Emma said, I definitely had below average grades, like very below. I never made the first in rugby or hockey or anything pretty much. And I had learning difficulties, mild forms of dyslexia and ADHD, amongst other things, never diagnosed. But I look back at my time at MTs as really, really important because it introduced me to a whole range of things. Now, when I say things, I mean everything. So chief bugler in the Corps band, I was in the Navy, I was in the Army, I was in the Sea Sprouts, I was in the Corps band, I was in the school orchestra, I sang, I did rugby, I did hockey, I did lots of athletics, I did so many different things, and all that helped me find out my thing in life. And so I've got a big thank you to MTs for my future career, really, and how it worked from there. But I failed a lot throughout my life. I failed in business. I've been sacked from 2 large corporations. A new company that I created was liquidated. I sold a startup venture at a 6-figure loss. In climbing, that's a picture of a dead climber, one of the 15 friends I've lost to the mountains. 9 expeditions I've led have failed, and I've had numerous epics, from avalanches to death, experiences of friends, broken bones, polar and Himalayan bear attacks. In exams, as I mentioned, not great. I failed my final year at university. I failed an intensive marketing diploma and generally very poor school exam results. In the military, I failed initially to get into the Royal Marines. I got in on the second go, and I failed to pass out of the first batch in the Royal Marines, the batch of officers that I was in. I broke my arm in training. I got back, so I effectively had to do my Greenberry tests twice. So, a bunch of failures. But, to me, it's all about the top 4 inches. Rugby players will talk about it. Lots of people talk about it because it's the brain that controls everything. That's what I've seen. That's what I've felt. That's what I've experienced in all my physical and mental challenges in life. It's all about your brain. If your brain's strong, the body will follow. You can have the biggest body, the strongest body on the planet, but if it's governed by a weak brain, you won't go anywhere. That's been my experience. And really, that really helps you never give up because your brain says, keep going. And that's the kind of message I want to get over to you guys today. So I've been at the expedition game throughout my life. I did my first expedition in 1977, Southeast Iceland when I was 16. I climbed Mont Blanc when I was 17. And I've done an expedition abroad every year pretty much since 77. I've opened new routes on 6 continents, and I have won various awards and got various speed tests, speed challenge awards for climbs that I've done. And I've done all the different types of climbing. There's stories about big wall climbing. So big wall is when you climb up a vertical sheet of rock more than 500 meters in vertical height. So imagine sort of half a kilometer straight up. That's where it starts. The wall I'm going to talk about was 1,000 meters. And this was my partner. I'd only met him once in California for a week. And the next thing I know, I'm climbing with him. This is Warren Hollinger. We're in Calgary in Canada. I've just come off a plane, and he's loading up with all the supplies for our expedition, which was to climb a new route on a big wall, a big piece of rock in the Canadian Rockies in a range called the Bugaboos. So as you can see, Warren's loading up the water bottles there with Yukon Jack and Jack Daniels and all this stuff. And he had a big pile of sort of like dried leaves, and I go, so Warren, like, this all looks great. There's lots of carabiners, there's lots of this stuff, but where's the food? And he goes, well, man, we're just going to float up it. And at that stage, I started to get a little bit worried. Actually, it turned out Warren was a world-class climber, and he was brilliant. He's about 6'5". He can carry his own body weight in huge haul bags, and he's a tough cookie, which he needed to be on this trip. That was our face. That's what we want to climb, a new line. And you can see that, that sort of white sheet of rock right in the center of the picture, just slightly left of center. And it's got like a right angle corner. And we went up that right angle corner and traversed from bottom right to top left. When you get to the highest point that you can see, that's still half a kilometer along a very sticky ridge to get across. That face took us 5 days, and it was in climbing like this. That's that open book corner, the watchtower face, as we called it, that took a number of days to crack. Very technical, very hard to climb. The bivvies were pretty interesting. This is just a diving board of rock that stuck out from the face. We spent a night on this. We got into it at 10 o'clock at night. Didn't really know where we were. We were new with a big exposure underneath us. We're all tied into the mountains. We're safe. We go to sleep. I wake up in the morning and I look straight down 600 meters. And I kind of nudge Warren. I go, Warren, look down. And he looked down. He saw the drop. And then he looked at me and he said, well, I guess we won't need any coffee this morning, because we were wide awake. Anyway, we got to the summit after 5 days. We ran out of food, we ran out of water. And then right on the summit, we got into a big storm. And there was thunder and lightning everywhere, super scary. We're on the summit. My hair was standing on end. Carabiners were knocking together on our harnesses. And we knew you had to get off the ridge fast. We ran along this ridge. We couldn't even belay. We're just free climbing, crampons skittering on the rock. We dropped onto a little, like 5 foot wide slab of rock, horizontal slab, just below the summit. And then bang, we got blown up by lightning. So this is the back. This is Warren's back, and you can see a double hand spread of lightning. That's where the lightning hit him. He came through his knee and out his back. That's the exit wound. This is my left cheek, not the prettiest of thing. That came into my left cheek, and in my right thigh, I've got 15 cigarette holes. So now we're on the summit. We're in bad conditions, we're burnt, and we're open to the elements. Our tent's blown away, and we're effectively dying. So this is a time when, if you panic, you die. You've got to really keep yourself together. Warren was in a bad shape, so he was lying down, so he paralyzed. So I started pumping his leg, getting his blood going in circulation. I eventually got him into a bivy bag. We survived the night. And then the next morning, we abseiled that face. This is the backside. It's still a big wall, but it's the backside of that face you see. And we come down eventually onto that glacier, but now we're on this very glaciated terrain, which in this sort of visibility would be great. This shot was taken subsequently. But when we arrived on that glacier, burnt, bitten, and very, very much fried, no water, no food, we're in deep fog. And basically we just couldn't move, because if you start crawling on your hands and knees, searching for the way out, you're going to fall into one of those slots. And even if we're roped, Warren and I, we couldn't have pulled the other one out. So we were stuck and we were freezing. So I'm going to go back to the previous slide. So you can imagine we're right at that back wall where that big line of crevasses is. And we're surrounded by big slots and we're in deep fog. And that's when the miracle happened. Basically, from the left-hand corner of this shot, the wind blew a line through the cloud and separated the cloud like the Red Sea parting. And that was our line out. And within 2 or 3 hours, we got to the coal. From there, it was half a day. And eventually we got back to the car 5 days later, having a couple of days bivvying on the way out and recuperating and getting better. So I've had a bunch of expedition experiences like that. And then in 2001, I got the diagnosis of type 1 diabetes. And my doctor, Dr. Mike Thomas, said your climbing days are over. So, sorry, Emma, do you want to admit David? I think he's just waiting there. Or do I do that?
I think I've done that, hopefully.
Oh, you did? Okay, fine. Yeah. Sorry, I'll carry on. So yeah, 2001, age 40, I got the diagnosis of type 1 diabetes. I knew nothing about diabetes. And my first three thoughts, pretty much in this order, was, would I see my 2 daughters grow up? Beth on the left, now 27, and Lottie on the right, now 23. Would I see them grow up? What's it like sticking a needle in your body so many times a day? And thirdly, would I still be able to climb? Would I lose my strength? Would I lose my desire? Would I lose my motivation? Now, this is 3 months of insulin injections. You have to inject 2 to 3 times a day. And type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune condition. So that means your body has attacked itself and killed your pancreas. The pancreas is a sort of fist-sized organ in the center of your body that secretes insulin. Insulin unlocks the sugar in your bloodstream and distributes it to the body. If you don't have insulin, you die pretty slowly over a 6-month period as your body sucks out everything it can take to try and sustain itself, because the sugar that you're eating, the sugar that breaks down from carbohydrate, isn't getting to where it needs to go. So effectively, you starve yourself, or you'll starve to death. And I always thought, God, that's a lot of injections. But like everything, if you want to do it and your brain's strong enough, you'll get through it. And there's plenty of people I've found out with type 1 diabetes who've led good lives. So what can type 1 diabetes look like? Well, it can look like that. Some of you guys might know that's Halle Berry, a Hollywood film star. It can also look like that. That's Henry Slade, who I'm sure some of you will know. He's a rugby player, and he's in the English team today. He's one of the best that we've got. It can look like that, but it can also look like this. Now, this lady is 16 years old. She's called Lian. She's from Vientiane in Laos. And before we got to her, she was literally dying. She lost all her weight. That's a 16-year-old girl. And well, like I said, diabetes will take everything from your body that it can. And when I got into understanding the condition, I started to investigate. I started to realize that, you know, if you're in Britain, you've got all the facilities, you've got a very good chance of a full life as a type 1 diabetic. If you're in the middle of Southeast Asia, in countries like Cambodia and Laos and Myanmar, type 1 diabetes diagnosis is a death sentence, simple as that, and you'll be dead within 6 months because they don't have the education, facilities, or medication to look after you. And so I teamed up with my oldest and best mate, Charles Toomey, ex-Special Forces Royal Marines. I was in training with him, spent a lot of time with Charlie. And Charlie's lived in Southeast Asia for 20 years. He's a very, very wealthy entrepreneur. He's a philanthropist, and he specializes in health. And we got together, we realized there was a big need in Southeast Asia where over 50% of the world's diabetics live, type 1 and type 2. And we put this charity together. So that's that's kind of the working look of A4D. Top left-hand corner, you've got Charles Toomey, and just on his right is me, hidden behind a couple of girls there. And these are the sort of girls, guys, and clinicians that we work with, because we always work with doctors and nurses through clinics. In 2015, our vision was to enroll up to 500 children who are type 1 diabetic. But as of October 2015, we were directly supporting just 6 children in Myanmar, and that was it. But our organization was very clear and very well organized, courtesy of Charlie, who's, like I said, a big entrepreneur. He turned a £500 million company into a $4.5 billion turnover company within 6 years. And so, you know, we planned this out. Phase 1, Myanmar, Thailand, Laos. Phase 2, Cambodia, Vietnam, Malaysia. And then phase 3, Indonesia and the Philippines. That was a very, very ambitious program in 2015. And I was going to Charlie, really? Do you think we can really do that? I'm just going to press that down. And basically he said, yeah, I think we can do this. Let's just go back. So there we are today. 700 children with type 1 diabetes across 7 countries in Southeast Asia. We're in Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, and Vietnam. So pretty much as we said we were going to do, as Charlie predicted. That's a ton of work right there, a ton of work. We have 10 people working full time for us. We raise all the money ourselves. We have 5 key programs. So we've got the A4D Action for Diabetes Scholarship Program. We run family camps, sponsor a child program, clinic support. This is the insulin medication and education programs. And in addition to that, we've got a world-beating digital platform called Hello Type 1, which is the first information platform in local language. So everything's translated in, say, Vietnamese or Burmese, and so it goes on. These are our challenges for keeping type 1 diabetics alive in rural communities. supplying them with insulin, that's the first and biggest one. Glucose testing, so you've got to test your blood sugar 5 or 6 times a day. That's an expensive one. Traveling distance for follow-up visits, hospitals. Lack of proper facility for insulin storage. And you might be going, well, you know, insulin needs to be kept in a fridge. What's the problem? You just stick it in the fridge. Most of the children and the rural communities who we work with don't have electricity, so no fridges. So what these kids have to do, and our kids are between 5 and 15 years old, some up to 20, but that's basically the age, 5 to 15. Every day they have to go under their house, scrabble around in the dirt, get rid or push out the poisonous spiders and the venomous snakes, and get to their insulin, which they keep in a little earthenware pot to cool it down. Then they take it out, then they inject, then they put it back again. That's just a daily challenge for them amongst all the many. One of the other problems is obviously nutritious food, and then difficult access to emergency care if they get something complicated like DKA, diabetes, diabetic ketoacidosis. So these are the challenges that the children we look after face. We also do healthcare capacity building. So we're educating and training the doctors in these countries because the education is very poor amongst healthcare professionals. And that all takes a lot of money and a lot of time. So A4D relies on a lot of corporate and philanthropic donations, and that's basically big businesses and corporate social responsibility initiatives. But we also do challenges, and I guess that's one of the things that I get involved in. So I've created a thing called Jerry's Insulin Challenge, or JICs. And every year I'll do an extreme or ambitious mountaineering or cycling challenge to raise money for Action for Diabetes. So far, I've done 20 JICs. I've raised $600,000, and it's taken me to places like Patagonia, Himalaya, Karakoram in Pakistan, Madagascar, all over the world. It's led to some pretty exciting stuff. Like I've got the UK speed record for the North Face of the Eiger, new routes in Patagonia, and a bunch of big cycle challenges. Talking of cycling, in 2017, when I was training for a big Sea to Summit challenge, I got knocked off my bike. So August 2017, I was catapulted into the air by a motorist who hit me, and I went about 10 meters in the air, landed on my neck, broke it. And you can see in that center bottom picture, basically they installed a sort of like shock absorber in my neck to keep it away from the spinal column. It was a big operation. And I'm going to ask Emma now to play a video of me lifting my hand within a week of having that operation. So Emma, over to you.
Yep, I will try just to make sure it's optimized, and away we go. Hard to watch.
Yeah, that good. Okay, I'm going to go back to share screen. Let's go to there, and
I should say that Jerry is in the deepest, darkest southwest, so hence the sharing my screen, sharing his screen.
If I can just, I'm going to try and share this. Let's see. That goes. No, let's have a look. Let's have a look. Go. Oh yeah, there we go. Is that me, Emma, or you? That's me. Yeah, okay. So in less than 12 months, I went from literally struggling to pull out a little elastic, little elastic bag. I could hardly pull it, to fully ripped, ready to go. That took 12 months of re-education, rehabilitation, lots of protein shakes, and quite a few chickens and eggs on the way. So in August 2018, I did my Sea to Summit challenge. There's me on the left. Then we've got Simon from the UK on my left. He's UK squad. He's an endurance runner. Then you've got Wout from Holland. He's the top adventure racer in Europe, 5-day adventure racing. That's my wife, Jackie, next to him. Next to her is Guillaume, international level ski mountaineering champion and road cycling expert. His father on Guillaume's left, and his wife, who's blind, Guillaume's mother. And then the last lady with the yellow helmet, that's Hollinger. She's 2 times Dutch triathlete or triathlon champion. So she's a top international athlete. A great team, all supporting A4D. That was our aim, to get to the summit of the highest peak in the Southern Alps from the sea, from Nice. That peak is the Bar des Écrins at 4,105 meters. And we started off at sea level. So there we are on the bottom left at Nice on the coast, 0 meters above sea level. And we want to get to the Bar des Écrins, 4,102 meters. The total distance, the road cycling was 221 plus 6,446 meters height gain. Then a 15-kilometer slog up the mountain on foot, another 2,225 meters, all in 24 hours. And now we're going to go over to Emma, who I hope is going to show this little video. Yeah. How we're doing. Close to where I live now. This is the gold bars, just over 2,000 meters. 80%. Then long flat. Straight back down and eating more. And there we go. Cool. Right, let me go back to, okay, let me go back to share. Okay, let me go back to that one. Is that right? No, it's not right. Let me go Let me just go up to there. Okay. Is it going to work? Don't know. I think I selected the wrong one. Let's go.
In the meantime, if anybody has any questions and they would like to pop them in the chat, do please do that.
Let me see if I can get it. Right, I'm going to go up again. Let's try it. I've got really bad internet here, so it's pretty slow. Let's just have a look. Let's try it again. I think I pressed the wrong button. Here we go. Can you see that?
Not yet.
Yep. No. Okay. Let's have a look.
Would you like me to put it on my screen?
I'm going to try to. Can you see that now, Emma, or not?
Not yet. Are you sharing?
Let's have a look. Probably not. Right, there we go. Can you see that?
Yep, that's great.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. So anyway, so that's what we did. 25th of August, 2018. Ascent distance, ascent time, we did it in 21:56. We went from plus 28 to minus 20. Blood sugar average I was really happy with. A non-diabetic is always around 4.5 to 5.5 millimoles. I can go from 3.5 to 30.5 in like 4 hours. So I can go right off the top. So to have an average of 6.9, I was really pleased with. That's the amount of insulin I injected. And that's the money we raised, which I was really pleased with, $115,000. So that was one of my challenges. And that brings us to 2021, my Jerry's Insulin Challenge for 2021. It was a difficult year in many ways. I always wanted to climb this mountain K2, and it's always been on my hit list, but it's expensive and it's very difficult to access. You're talking about northern Pakistan on the border with China. You know, it'd always been one of my big ambitions. So what actually happened in 2021? Well, in January, I had a really bad accident. I had a big fall on ice, the two screws that you can see in my right ankle, that wasn't a result of the fall, but what that did was trigger off the arthritis in that right ankle because I landed badly. Those screws were put in like a few years ago. It was a result of a military operation quite a few years ago, but that was really flaring up. That was presenting a lot of problems. Just getting into getting into Pakistan, getting a visa, getting permission. This was right in the middle of the pandemic. Lots of issues there with COVID, but also with oxygen, because you know, we were going to join a commercial expedition which relies on bottled oxygen. All the bottled oxygen for the Karakoram in Pakistan comes from Nepal. Nepal was in lockdown. That meant no bottled oxygen. It also meant no Sherpas who fix all the rope on the mountain. So literally, you know, the situation was changing day by day right up until the last minute when I eventually went to Pakistan on the 14th of June. My charity Action for Diabetes was going through the roof, and that was needing a lot of work. I was still running a couple of companies in France to pay for everything. And my wife was in isolation in a 2-bedroom tiny apartment in Bedford with her mother, Joy, bottom right-hand corner, Jackie on the right, Joy on the left. Joy was 90, she had terminal cancer, she was in isolation with my wife. And so we could only communicate by phone, text and email. And that was very frustrating because I felt bad. And yet she kept saying, look, go for it. There's no point. You can't come and help us. We're in isolation. You can't stay here. It's a tiny apartment. But obviously mentally, that was a big issue for me. The guy who helped me so much on this trip, and my best climbing partner of all time really, was this guy on my right in this picture. It's hard to explain just what an amazing person this guy is. I'm trying to think of the words, but you're talking about probably one of the very best British high altitude mountaineers of all time. This is a guy called Rick Allen. In this shot, 68 years old. Rick, on this expedition, outpaced 25-year-old Pakistani porters and guides carrying the same weight as he did. Rick Allen is literally a living legend. We're talking about the same strength as Doug Scott, way stronger than Chris Bonington, much stronger than Kenton Cool, one of the very best in the world. And he's been doing it for a long time. His aim was to climb a new route with me on Broad Peak, which is the mountain just to the left, highest point that you can see above Rick's head there. That's Broad Peak, 8051 meters, one of the highest mountains in the world. We wanted to climb a new route, but we thought we'd go to K2, try and climb K2, do a recce reconnaissance for Broad Peak, because the rest of our team couldn't come out that year because of COVID. So that was our plan in 2021. Climb K2, recce Broad Peak, raise money, and, you know, check out the new route. This expedition, like so many, was just a problem from the start. Once we got to Pakistan, just getting to the mountain, there were severe roadblocks caused by avalanches. This is a road cut through the ice. You can see the snowdrift. On the top right-hand picture, that's a myxoidal cyst that just appeared out of nowhere. So that was really painful when hiking. I damaged the toenail on my right foot when I was training in the Alps, doing 1,000 meters up in an hour. So a lot of vertical running up and down. You never guess, but in Skardu, the roadhead for K2, I actually got the first symptoms of testicular cancer. So this guy, a doctor who's trained in Birmingham, had to do a full examination. He spoke perfect English. He was an absolute gentleman. And he said, we did some scans and he said everything was fine. That was just, you know, the start. So this is part of the team. There's buried in that lot, there's a prince and princess from Saudi Arabia. There's a Qatari banker. There's a high altitude Greek policeman, mixed team, and lots of fun. But this is a commercial expedition, so people pay to go on this trip. Rick and I went on this trip to use the rope, but we were there to carry our own food and equipment to put our own tents in. So it's much cheaper, but we used the fixed ropes on the mountain. This was a lady called Jen from America. She's got 7 surrogate children. She's a self-made millionaires. She's a triathlete. She does sub 3-hour marathons. She's just a typical unbelievable superwoman from the States. And this is her with her gels for a couple of days going up the mountain. My big problem, as always, was testing and injecting, and you have to test in, plus 30 conditions on the approach. This is the walk into K2 in the desert. There's a big crevasse and glacial runnel on the lead up to K2. Bottom right, injecting at 6,000 meters. Bottom left, injecting through my one-piece down suit, white, at 5,000 meters at a camp. The temperature range was a big issue as well, because insulin has to be kept at about 8 degrees centigrade. And because we went through a great variety of temperatures from sort of like plus 40 to minus 20, keeping it from freezing and keeping it from not getting too hot was a big issue. If insulin freezes, it's useless. You can chuck it. So that was another challenge. Lots of friends and mates. You'll see me on the over left. Just on my right is Kenton Cool, 12 times Everest summiteer, brilliant mountaineer, mountain guide, good friend of mine for many, many years. And there's Farad, that's our Qatari banker, and then Rick on the far right. Conditions were from brilliant to horrible. This is at Camp 2 on Broad Peak. We're at about 6,200. The aim was to acclimatize on Broad Peak, which is a less dangerous mountain than K2. So get the altitude acclimatization in before having a crack at K2. I got to say, it was a bit of a cluster muck on Broad Peak. A lot of people who shouldn't have been there. There's a famous South Korean, bottom left, who's handicapped. He died on this expedition trying to get to the summit. Farad on the right, you can see he lost his fingers to frostbite on this expedition. The skier in the middle, Sergey, a Russian, he tried to ski from the summit of Broad Peak and went over my rope, and I thought he was actually going to catapult down the mountain, but luckily he managed to regain, but he was so close to losing it. And the girl on my right, top left, the one in the blue jacket, she fell into a crevasse twice on the descent from Broad Peak, and so nearly died. I had a Pakistani expedition leader on a telephone screaming at his guide, who was up on the mountain and who was being blocked because this woman was hanging on the rope, to literally cut the rope, and so him and his clients could move forward. And I obviously was stopping that, but that's what he wanted, because she was literally hanging on the rope at just under 8,000 meters. It got pretty messy. But that's typical commercial stuff, I've got to say. Rick and I achieved our aim, we acclimatized, and we were now ready for K2. It's an amazing mountain. It's 8,611 meters high. It's the second highest mountain in the world. It's only a couple of hundred meters lower than Everest, 8,848, and yet it's much harder because it's a pyramid, so it's steep on every side. It's a long, hard approach, grueling approach up the Baltoro Glacier rather than stopping in tea houses every 5 minutes. And the weather on K2 is legendary. If you get caught high up, you're not going to come down. And we've lost a number of British mountaineers over the years because they've done exactly that. They got in a storm high on K2 with no way of coming down. So it's a dangerous, difficult mountain. It's also composed of shaly limestones. There's a lot of rockfall, which you have to be careful of. And it's just steep, really steep. But it's a beautiful mountain. And for a climber, it's just the ultimate. I'm going to cut very quickly because I'm kind of running out of time. But it's complicated to say. I'm not going to go into details. But 3 days before we're about to go up, Rick got the offer to climb a new route on the east face of K2, and he went off with 2 European guides led by a guy called Jordi Tozas, who's an amazing Spanish new route mountaineer. Rick invited me to go, but I said, look, I'm not up for this. I need to summit. I'm doing this for diabetes. If I get to the summit, I'll be the first type 1 diabetic in the world to climb arguably the highest mountain. I'm just going to go for the normal route. You go for your new route. Best of luck. And this was the last shot taken of Rick by Geordie on the east face. Sadly, after this shot was taken, there were 4 avalanches. The first one killed him. A rock hit him, took him out, and the second one cut his ropes, and he went all the way down. And I eventually found his body because I was very close to him at the time. I was at Camp 1. He was just over on the east face. Me and this team of Pakistani porters and guides, we found him at midnight the day he died. We got him down, and this is the day after he died, and we buried him. And I'd lost one of my greatest friends, and I was deeply, deeply upset. So it's time for some intrinsic motivation. There's 4 different types of motivation, and one of them is intrinsic. So that comes from within. And I had to dig deep. I still had a lot of money to raise for my charity. I'd lost my best mate in an accident that shouldn't have happened. I didn't summit K2. The expedition was cancelled straight after his death because the expedition leader said he didn't want to carry on anymore. His guides didn't want to carry on anymore with their clients, so we all had to come down. So there's no K2, no summit, no money, and deeply upset after all that work and all that effort. 20 people summited on K2 from other expeditions within 3 days of us coming down. So we knew it was possible, but we couldn't go down. We couldn't go on. So I came back to Britain August 21. I've got to say, pretty down. You know, I'm a very positive person. It took me about 2 weeks to get my head together and to realize I needed to pull up my game, my plan B. My plan B to raise the money was to climb the north face of the Piz-Badil in Switzerland that year. This is one of the 6 great north faces in the European Alps. I climbed most of them. I hadn't done the north face of the Piz-Badil. So I've done things like north face of the Eiger a couple of times, Matterhorn, you know, things like that. But I hadn't done north face of the Piz-Badil. It's a big 800-meter, almost 1 kilometer vertical rock face, all free, no artificial climbing, all using your hands and your feet. But it's a big hill, and it's a lot of climbing. I was in a weakened state, but to make things even harder, I teamed up with the guy on my left, Pete Wilson, and he had a quadruple heart bypass operation less than 10 months before we had to go. And the guy on my right is Rob Benton, one of my oldest friends, really good rock climber. And we thought we could get this guy to the summit, get Pete to the summit. He couldn't, his heart rate couldn't go above 200 beats per minute. And he was monitored really, really carefully. And they said, if he goes over 200, you're going to be in real problems. But this is what the operation involves. So quadruple heart bypass is really replumbing the heart. And they'll take, the surgeons will take arteries anywhere they can find them. So you've got this vein that goes, this artery goes all the way down his left leg, his his left arm, and they'll take that and then replumb the heart. It's a massive operation. They open up the whole sternum, the whole chest cavity to replumb the heart. And of course, it takes a lot of time to get over it. But when Pete had this done, he said, look, mate, I'm really struggling with motivation. What shall I do? I said, have a challenge. What do you want to do? And he said, well, I'd really like to climb the north face of Piz-Badil. And this was we had this conversation in November 2020. And I always had that in the back of my mind. So I came back from K2. I said, how do you feel about going for Piz-Badil? He said, yeah, I've been training. I'm up for it. I've raised some money. When do you want to go? And he was expecting a response like next year. I said, how about in a month's time? So in September, a month and a half after K2, we went for the Piz-Badil. And here we are. It's a 3-day climb. It's a big hill. There's lots of technical climbing, and Rob on the right and me in the center here led Pete on the left up every pitch of this 800, almost 900 meter vertical wall. We got to the summit, and Pete's looking in the middle, looking a little bit knackered, as you can imagine. Rob's looking cool, like, so what's the problem? I'm looking positive as ever. And I remember Rob saying, so Pete, how'd you do? How's the heart? He goes, got pretty close, but I think we're okay. And I said, so close. So how close? He goes, 196. So he reached 196 beats per minute. And he definitely pushed himself, but we were very careful with him, and we were guiding him gently all the way up, but keeping the momentum, because this is it's a big route. We started at 3 in the morning. We got to the very summit at 10 o'clock at night. So it's a big day. And then you got to bivvy on top of the mountain and then get off the next day. Anyway, July, so my JICs, K2 and Pisbadil, July, September 21. The donation target was $50,000. We raised $58,500 so far, hint, hint. And it was a success. So my final slide really is my philosophy on life. On the left is a picture of Rick Allen. Rick literally did what or how I think one should live one's life. Life is not a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving safely in a well-preserved body, but rather to skid in sideways, totally worn out, loudly proclaiming, "Yeehaw, what a ride." That's a quote by Hunter S. Thompson. That's my philosophy. That's definitely Rick's philosophy. He had an amazing life. To say he had 10 normal lives would be a total understatement. That guy was amazing, and he really lived his life like that. And all I can say is that I hope you do too, and I hope that you too will never give up. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Thank you, Jerry. That was amazing. I'm going to hand over to Afan and Sahil, because I think you've probably got a few questions that have come in.
Shall I stop sharing my screen?
Good idea.
Okay, I'll do that. There we go.
Yep. So if our first question is from Mr. Taylor, and he asked whether the loss of comrades ever led you to question yourself and how you recovered from these dark moments.
So I would say I've never questioned myself, because climbers climb knowing the risks. We talk about it all the time. And what we are risk minimizers. So we plan, we prepare, we train, we check our kit, we practice and practice and practice, and we train, and all again every day. I wouldn't say it's anything to do with adrenaline. I would say it's everything to do with athletic performance. It looks crazy, it looks dangerous, it looks stupid, it looks scary. Why would you put yourself through all that mental and physical torment? But you do it because you love moving over stone. You do it because you love the environment. You do it because you love equipment. You do it because it's living, it's freedom. I'm so aware of my body and myself when I'm climbing that I've never questioned it. And when people die, it's incredibly sad. But again, it makes you think, why are you sad? Are you sad for the person, or are you sad for yourself? Rick died at 68. He lived the best life you could ever imagine. And he certainly wasn't sad. He had a very strong faith. If anybody was going to go to heaven, it was Rick. He loved his life. He loved climbing, and he knew exactly what he was doing. And I discussed death and these sort of things with Rick many, many times, as climbers do, because it's something that is around, it's present, it's a possibility. And we always come to the same conclusion: we wouldn't do anything else. No one wants to die. It's not a death wish, but it's something that is us. It's deep within us, and I think you have to be true to yourselves. And if I didn't climb, and if my friends didn't climb, they wouldn't be who they are, true to themselves. So, in a way, that answers the bit about getting over the positive. How do you deal with these dark times? They're dark, but they're dark for not very long, because, if someone dies at 20 or 15, that's incredibly sad. But if someone dies in the 40s or 50s or 60s, to me, that's part of life, and it's much easier to accept. The youngest person I ever lost, he was age 21, and that was really, really sad. But he actually wasn't climbing at all. It was a stupid paragliding accident. You know, death is something that all non-climbers talk about, and it's something that climbers don't dwell a lot on. They do discuss it, of course they do, but it doesn't stop them from fulfilling their passion. You know, does anybody ask a point-to-point racer or a Formula One driver, well, you know, why are you climbing? It's super dangerous. Or why are you doing those sports? It's super dangerous. You know, you don't question that, because everybody drives. A lot of people ride horses. They're really dangerous things, but people don't question it. Climbing is not something, or big mountains is not something that normal people would do. And so we don't understand it. And so we don't understand. And so we question it. But if you do it and you do understand it, then it's just part of your life, and it certainly helps you get over any of the negativities that happen along the way. I don't know if that answers the question, but that's my response. Any other questions?
Yeah,
We're all on mute.
Oh yeah, I've just got a comment from one of the members watching, Hamish Stewart. He said that he finds your honesty about your failure really inspiring. And I've also got a question about, what is your next ambition for your charity?
Oh, that's a really good question. Well, we're just about to launch in the Philippines. Now that's a really difficult one. So by the end of 2022, we want to be in 8 countries, and we want to reach 1,000 children mark if we can. That's a big stretch. We've got a lot of plans in process, but those are the two. To open to help children with diabetes at clinics in the Philippines, and to help over 1,000 children in total in Southeast Asia with type 1 diabetes. But we need donations, hint.
Yeah, I actually had a question myself, and I was just wondering, what would be your tips for a student like us in developing mental strength in our day-to-day life at school and even outside of school, saying sports, etc.?
That's a really good question. I would say work your weaknesses. So by that I mean, you know, if you're frightened about something, if you're worried about something, get involved in it and work through it. The way I've overcome problems in my life is that I get involved, and I break the problem down into small parts. I'm trying to remember what I was like when I was like 17 at Merchant Taylors, and I guess all I can say is that I had a go at everything. So I had lots of experiences of different things. And I think those experiences are really formative and really important. And don't be afraid to try anything and everything. When there's any opportunity, put your hand up first and have a go. Because the only thing that you're going to lose is not having that opportunity. I think you're living in a time which is difficult because of the digitalization of everything. Everything can be measured and monitored, and that's difficult. And when you pick up a phone, you've literally got the world in your palm, and that's really hard because it's too much information. And the thing I say to my children, the thing I say to young people generally is to break that down, have a go. Don't worry about the details, just get involved, whatever it is. Whether it's a physical challenge, a mental thing, whether it's the CCF, whether it's physically handicapped, able-bodied stuff, whatever it is, get involved. And when you're being involved, you're working and learning. And I don't think you're learning by introspection and looking at your phone and looking at your next WhatsApp message. I've got a big, sad to say this, you won't like this, but I've got a big downer on social media, because social media takes you away from actually interaction and doing stuff. And we're human beings, we're built to communicate and to do and to try stuff. And so in a way, my simple answer is try and do things, whatever it is, and that will take your mind off the introspection and the worry and the processing, and it's more about active and learning. And I think when you're young, it's all about learning, and you're learning every time you open your eyes. Whoever you interact with, whatever you look at, you're learning. But like I always say, academic learning and study is only part of our progression. There's so much more than just books and study. And I think a school like Merchant Taylor's is brilliant, is world-class at extracurricular. It's just amazing. And that's the opportunity you take. And that's what I would encourage everybody to do. Take as much of that opportunity as you can. But not just at MTs, whatever you do, whether it's helping an old lady across the street or whether it's getting involved in charity work, whatever you do things and learn from them. I think a lot of people in business life that I've sort of picked up over the years is, you know, when you work for a charity or run a charity, people kind of, in a way, they look down and you go, oh yeah, you're working for a charity. Yeah, but what are you really doing? All I can say is that running Action for Diabetes, as I've drawn on every single subject I ever learned at MTs. I drew on the maths, the science, the geography, the history, the language, all those things I was taught at MTs. I will need all of that to run that charity. But like I said, it always comes down to your brain, and to get your brain stronger, you have to challenge it. You have to put it in difficult situations. And that's why I always say, put your hand up for stuff, because when you put your hand up stuff and you volunteer for something, you're being challenged, because no one likes to go first. No one likes to put their hand up. We're all a little bit timid and, oh, shall I do that? Put your hand up, get involved, do stuff, push your body and your mind, and you'll become a stronger person. Does that help?
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you. Great advice.
Excellent advice.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I had just had one more myself as well. You mentioned how throughout these challenges, we've obviously faced a lot of difficulties, such as being struck by lightning, which is, you know, quite an extreme challenge. Were there any points in any of your challenges where you felt like just giving up? I know you preach about not giving up, but were there any moments you thought, this is it, I should give up here?
I suppose I'm going to really try and be honest here. And you know the answer? No. I never think of failure. I always think I'll get through it. And you might think that's stupid, big-headed, egotistical, whatever. But there's no point in thinking negatively. You know, you can think negatively or positively. I always think positively. Now that needs to be balanced, because sometimes you can be too positive, you can too much like, oh, it'll all be fine, and it's not. But I never think negatively, because I think it doesn't help you get anywhere. I always trained in the special forces. One of the first things they teach you in the SBS is basically learn to control your emotions. Emotions get you into problems. And that's one of the biggest things you have to do. And it's a physical and mental discipline. We love to cry and to feel emotional and to feel sorry for ourselves, to feel sorry for other people. And I think we care too much. You can overcare just as much as you can undercare. But at the end of the day, life's tough. People are dying right now, less than a few thousand miles from us, and they're dying in extreme situation. But people are dying in London. People are starving in Birmingham. People are getting beaten up and raped in Leicester. You know, it's all around us. The world is tough. And if you're too soft and too emotionally vulnerable and weak, you're not going to survive. So I think you have to be tough. And I think you have to be strong with yourself. And I think you have to be disciplined. And every time you think, oh, I'm just going to break down, I just can't take it, you go, no, stop it, get a grip and control your emotions. And the more you say that to yourself and the more you force yourself to do it, I've found personally, the more I can do that, because you literally get stronger. Like you can build a muscle, you can build your brain. And it's not giving in. And hence my phrase, never giving up. You just don't give up. You just keep going. And it can be a little thing or it can be a huge thing. But generally, I tend to start slow. So little steps, you know, just getting through your first rugby match or getting through an exam. That's already something. That's already a step forward. You've passed that exam. You've got through to the second round of the tournament, whatever it is, and just build it up. And then if you do want to reflect, just think back, hold it, I've just done that. And the week before I did that. And last year I did that. And you'll see actually you've done a whole range of stuff already. And take some pride in that and take some confidence in that and go, okay, I'm going to push that a little bit further. I go another little step forward. And the worst thing you can do is to compare. And that's one of the things I hate about social media. It's all about comparison. Don't compare. No one else is important. It's what you can do with your skills and your abilities and your strength, your mental and physical strength. And accept that and try and make whatever you do as good as it possibly can be. Does that help?
Yeah, that's really good advice. Yeah, thank you.
It's amazing advice. Are there any more questions before I close off? And first of all, thank you so much, Jerry. That was a brilliant talk, just really inspirational. When you sent me through your PDF about the things that you've achieved, it really, if somebody has achieved just 1/10 of that, they would be amazingly proud. And I think the way you've kept on going through your challenges and then also giving back to the children and young people in Southeast Asia as well through your charity Action for Diabetes is remarkable. And I'm sure that there'll be plenty of people clicking on that donation link when I send it out tomorrow. And so, yes, thank you so much. And what's your next challenge this year?
Well, in August, I'm going to try and do, it's a challenge called Insulin 360. We're going to try and cycle the southern French Alps on a mountain bike. So it's 360 kilometers. It's 17,000 meter height gain in 7 days. So it's the most spectacular mountain bike traverse in Europe, pretty much. And we'll be doing it at the end of August. I'll be putting details up on various social media and stuff, even though I don't like them. And yeah, that's my next challenge, mountain biking.
Fantastic. Well, we will keep track of that. And yes, so once again, thank you so much, Jerry. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Spread the word. And it's great to see you all.
Thanks a lot. And thanks to Merchant Tailors.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, Jerry. That was great.
Thanks.
Have a good evening. Bye.
Bye. Bye.